Going on about this Afro think tank. Black man asks a profound question. He said, if heaven is real and the slave went to heaven and the slave terrorist slave master went to heaven, how would that coordinate with each other? How would that work out? Is would the would the African guy still be a slave in heaven to the master? Would the white man be praised for the things he's done when he was alive as a slave master towards a slave? Like how does that marry? How does that work out? Right? And it is a profound. I think I've heard this question before, but think about it. I always said that white people and black people don't worship the same gods, right? We don't even worship the same the Jesus. Like how do you do the things that you do as a group of people, right? In your churches where you promote racism. Like, listen, the church, the house of God, supposedly to Europeans, they promote, uplift, and maintain racism. Is that something Jesus would do? What if Jesus walked into that church? They might have hung him. Jesus might have got called a terrorist. Jesus would have got called a nigger, right? Jesus they would have had him cleaning the floors. They would have never let him step up to talk to the people. They would have disrespected and spit on him. They would have had a picnic with and him being the special guest, right? But they say they worship a Jesus, right? How do they worship God? Like, is their God loving? Because they're not loving. Inside the most loving institution that they supposedly created, they're not loving. They're not empathetic. But they go to church all the time. They're super Christians. What are they practicing in those churches? Right? And how do they figure they're going to go to heaven? How do they figure their community is going to go? How do they figure there's God anywhere around them based off how they have culturally been, based off how they operate their families, based on how they operate their communities, based off how they treat other people? How do they read the Bible and then go do evil things afterwards and then open up the Bible and read it again and say, we doing this for Jesus? How do they do that? How have any of these people justified their genocide, their murder, how do they do it? And say this is a spirituality, this is God, this is good, I'm going to heaven. Huh? Did the slave master, right, when they were giving the Africans who were enslaved that Bible, when they gave them that Bible, did they give it to them thinking, hey, you know what, you're going to go to the same place I'm going to when you die, after I kill you? We're going to be in the same place. Did they believe that? Anyway, let's listen to what this brother got to say, because I'm telling you, this Abrahamic and Asiatic religions, they ain't nothing but that the worst thing that ever happened to humanity. The worst. Is the worst two religions, worst two mythologies ever created in human history. Done nothing but it has been a weapon of mass destruction. It's killed billions and billions of people, disenfranchised and displaced millions of people in the name of peace. My ass. Anyway, you guys tell me what you think in the comment sections. Afro Think Tank, learn something, teach something. I'm out.
I woke up this morning with this rather interesting thought. Suppose there really is a heaven. Suppose there really is God, and suppose there really is a Jesus. And former slaves and former slave terrorists ended up in heaven. How would that coexistence go? Right? How would that go? When the former slave and former slave terrorists run into each other, what would the conversation be like? I mean, hey man, remember when I had your ass in the fields, right? And you used to work, and or if they go to a slave that they murdered, hey man, remember we had your ass swinging from that tree? Yeah, yeah, you know. And it seems to me that if the cruelest thing this fucking god of yours could do was allow both groups into heaven, and would the former slaves be expected to forgive their murderers, their terrorists? Huh? Would they be expected? What about the indigenous people? They made it to heaven and find those people who committed genocide against the indigenous people. How is that supposed to go? Are the indigenous people in heaven, are they supposed to see those murderers and say, hey, yeah, I know what you did to my people, what you did to me, because, they would have lived back then. I know what you did to me, but we're in heaven now. I forgive you. Is that how it's supposed to go? What about you, black person? What about you? Huh? What if you went to heaven and you ran across some of those former slave terrorists, the terrorists who murdered your ancestors, who beat them and raped them and ate them? You ran into them and you say, hey, yeah, I know what you did to my people, but we're in heaven now. All is forgiven. Would that be your reaction if you still had the same thought process that you have right now? Would you? And what about, suppose that there was a slave who was murdered by those bastards on earth, and the slave went to heaven, and time passed, and then one of the bastards who owned this person and who helped lynch him entered heaven. What should be that slave's reaction? And then Jesus is standing there with this big fucking smile on his face saying, welcome, my child. Huh? I mean, I would think that slave would be justified to say, whoa, J dude, what the fuck, man? I mean, you let this guy live a long, healthy, prosperous life. He died with being surrounded by his family. He came here, and my entry here was from the branch of a fucking tree. I mean, look, you couldn't have thought of a less brutal way to get me here, and this motherfucker gets to live a long life. That slave would be justified to slap the fucking smile off Jesus' face. Fuck you, man. And I'll tell you what, thinking the way I do right now, no, if there is a heaven, there's no way I could go there. Because feeling the way I do about this whole slavery institution, I would be compelled to incite a fucking riot. And I'll tell you this, if the story about Satan, Lucifer, being fed up with the bullshit that goes on up there is true, I understand why he revolted. I understand, given what I see of this so-called God on earth, I understand why Lucifer said, fuck this dude. He ain't about shit. So I just thought that, how would that, what would this God expect of the former slaves if the former slave terrorists they both ended up in heaven? You ever thought about that? What would this fucking God expect the slave to do? Are the slaves supposed to think, all is good, man, all is good? I mean, to me, it seems like seeing that former terrorist for eternity would be a sort of damnation, to be reminded of the brutality that they had to endure by the hands of those bastards, and you have to encounter them for eternity? Man, fuck that. No. But I don't believe in all that God, Jesus bullshit. But if they exist, there should be a riot up there in heaven. Lucifer, I dig where you're coming from, brother, if you're real.
Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such an extent that you bleach? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate, you should ask yourself, who taught you to hate being what God gave you?
Free Sudan, boycott diamonds and gold. Free Sudan, boycott diamonds and gold. We most definitely cannot forget about the people of Sudan.
Thanks for watching Afro Think Tank. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And follow me on Substack and Patreon for more content. Remember, it's Pan-Africanism or nothing.